Hello, Fearless Gamers! Matt here for Fearless Games, and today I'm finally going to go over my How to Play Battlefleet Gothic video set. Now, I've looked over the last video where I asked what you guys wanted me to do, and I decided to go over the basic rules as they are right now, and then later make a supplement video on what was changed in the 2010 compendium. This way, we have a ground level for everyone who hasn't seen my original videos to go off of, and for those who have seen the original videos, then you'll get your video as well about what's been added. Plus, hopefully I'm going to try and make the little better versions of the previous videos on my channel, so hopefully this will explain things a little bit clearer. If at any time you have questions after, I recommend usually watching the full video because I may answer the question later on in the segment. But if you do find that after a video you have a question, leave a comment in the comment section. If it's, it's a simple question, that I can just, I'll comment back to it, or if someone else who already knows the answer, comment back as well. If you have something that you want to really explain if you really want me to really explain an answer to you, or if you have a really complex question or series of questions, send a private message to me through Fearless Games. Just put in the subject title, The Vet, and then, Battlefleet Gothic question. This way I know it's for me and not for the other Matt on the channel. So, now with that in mind, let's begin. We're going to first talk about the principles within the game. Now, this is using the rulebook that's off the Games Workshop site. I'm going to put a link in the description so you can download the rules yourself, then do what I did, just print them out. It's a lot easier than carrying the blue book around, and in general, for those who have the blue book, there's only one difference so far that I've been able to find in the blue book to this one, and it only has regards to the Nova Cannon, which we will get into later. So, but again, free, print out, why not? Now, I do forget if I look down sometimes at it, because, I'm going to use it for reference, in case, my mind slips. And so now we're going to go over the basic principles of the game. And what I mean by this is there are a couple of concepts that need to be kept in mind with this game. First and foremost is the fact that space is large. It's massive. So the models and the terrain don't really, to incorporate terrain pieces like planets, moons, asteroid fields, and nebulas and such, they kind of have to blow up the scale of the ships bigger than they actually are. So for this, the thing to keep in mind is the model is not used for anything but to look pretty and have something on the board. That's the only purpose of it. The actual ship's location is the stem of the flight stand that it's sitting on. So all measurements for shooting at, flying, moving, any type of measurements that affects the model is done to the stem of the ship, not the model itself. In essence, think of it as you're sitting on there's a giant battle grid, and the computer is magnifying all the ships on the field so you can see them and identify them. Other thing about the flight stand that it works with is the close proximity. This is determined by the base of the flight stand. The close proximity is to the ship. This is where it's vulnerable to mines, torpedoes, attack craft, etc. I like to think of it as the shield around the ship. So everything that hits the shield can affect the ship itself, because it's just close enough where it could, if the shields were not there, affect the ship itself. Now, the other thing to keep in mind in this is that it's a 2D game in a 3D space. What this is basically going off of is, say if you have two ships lined up in front of each other, and one wants to move. The other ship in front is technically in the way, but because they're in space, the ship can actually move above and below it. So what this means is that models do not block other models from getting to where they want to go. So it's not like a piece of terrain where it's like, there's no way to go through it without going through the terrain. In this sense, what it is the ship goes, oh, another ship, up, over, or, oh, another ship, up, under. So that's something to basically keep in mind, that you can't use models to prevent models' movement in one area. They can always fly over or under the ship. Now, basically, as I mentioned in my first video of what you need, D6s are the only dice you'll ever really use in this game. And so you just need a couple of sets of D6s and you'll be all set and ready to go. The other thing to keep in mind is the bearing compass. The bearing compass is a very key critical piece for this game. I actually paint mine onto my ship models just to make it easier in case my bearing compass goes missing. But the bearing compass basically marks out the arcs. The front arc, the back arcs, and the side arcs. This is also used for turning as well, and determining which weapons are able to shoot at which ships. So it's very important that anything else, you get a bearing compass. And if you can, I think it's a lot easier to just paint the bearing compass onto the ship's base stand, so then you always have it present and easy to figure out and affiliate. And if you mark it just right, you'll never have to, go, wait, it's not center or anything. It'll always be center, and the ship will always turn perfectly each time. And so now with that, the other thing, now those are the basic premises of this. Now we're going to get into one or two other things before we move on to the actual game terms. The first thing is the leadership. Every model has a leadership. Thing is they're not fixed. They're always different each time you play the game. The way you determine a model's leadership is you take a D6, and on page 10 of the Battlefleet Gothic rulebook, there's a chart that tells you, you basically roll a d6, you look at the result, and you compare it to the chart, and that determines what your leadership is. Certain armies, like the Eldar, actually have their own special leadership table. On that front, you would go to their table and ignore the leadership table for general armies. Now, you do this for every ship and squadron in the fleet. And once you have, and so you go, roll one, okay, this ship is this leadership. Roll this, okay, this squad is this leadership. Roll this, okay, this ship is this, okay, this ship, and so on and so forth, till all of them have a leadership value. Now, the leadership value is used for determining when they're, special maneuvers, doing some sort of avoidance trick, going through asteroid fields, making special commands, and stuff like that. And speaking of, there are a couple of, there's what its primary use is for is special orders, which is on page 11. Now, I'm not going to go into full detail on how these special orders work, because that would take a lot more time than I really have, since we only have 15 minutes per video right now. So I'm just basically going to go over what they are and what they basically do. There's All Ahead Full. This one basically allows you to move your ship further than its allowed maximum movement. So in games like Exterminatus or Planetary Assault, you would use this to get your ships as close to the point of objective as fast as possible. And in most games, in one game I had, it worked pretty well. What got my ship, a ship that would have taken normally 5 turns to get to the planet, actually was able to do it in 3. Then there's Come to a New Heading. This one allows you, in games, in movement phases, each ship is allowed 1 turn, unless specifically noted in their special rules. Come to a New Heading allows you, after your movement, to make a 2nd turn. This is very good, especially if you want to do a wraparound to get behind somebody or catch up to someone who's already passed you. Then there's Burn Retros. Burn Retros is to prevent your ship from moving. This basically takes your maximum move and cuts it in half, and that's your new maximum move for that turn. So if you have a movement of, say, 60, and you burn retros, your maximum movement is now 30 instead. Lock-on. Lock-on is a very useful special order. Problem with it is it prevents you from turning. So you can only go in a straight line if you're locked on. But it allows you to re-roll any failed to hit rolls that you make during that turn. Reload Ordnance. This gives your ship the ability to fire their torpedoes, their bombers, their fighters, their attack craft, and all their other special ordnances again. We get a little bit more into detail on that one later on in these video segments. Then there's Brace for Impact. This is the only order that's done at either the ordnance phase or in your opponent's turn, and this gives your ship a 4-up save to ignore damage put on it. The way you apply a special order to a ship is you do a command check. You roll 2d6. If you get equal to or under your command check, you've passed and the ship is now under special orders. The special order that you place on the ship can only be one. You can't have 2 or 3 unless your army says otherwise in their special rules, but in general, most armies are only allowed to be under 1 special order at a time. And if you happen to fail your command check, you get above your command check value, your command score, then that ship does not go under special orders, and you're not allowed to make any further special orders for the rest of that turn. So what's usually the best practice in this front is doing your highest leaderships first and going down to your lowest. This way you have a higher chance of getting the maximum number of ships to get put under special order in any given turn. There are some bonuses and negatives that you get during your command checks. You get a -1 if there's blast markers touching your base stand of your ship. We'll talk a little bit more about blast markers in a later video, but for right now, all you need to know is if your ship is being touched by a blast marker, you have a -1 to your leadership. Enemy contacts. If any of the enemy ships are under special order, you get a +1 to your command check, to a maximum of 10. The 10 is the highest you can ever get with this leadership you can get in the game. And so this essentially, it kind of is like a catch-22. You can either put in the extra order and get that extra benefit, but then you give the other guy a chance to throw the special order that can ruin you in the next turn. So you really got to pick and choose which times you're going to do this. We basically don't have any more time for anything else for this video, so we're going to end it there. Now, and just before I go, one last thing. If you ever have doubts about what rules are worked in what way, you can always make sure to have a copy of the reference sheet on hand. This is another thing you can download. It basically has bare bones sum up of everything we're going to go over in these videos. So on one side it's got the different phases with how you how you do each step. It's got, page references for specific orders and such through there, shooting phase, ordered end phase, and then on the back it's got, the different shards, the weapon batteries, location indicator, and a brief description on the special orders at the top. So always a good thing to have. This has saved us a lot of time in games and has also ended arguments a lot of the time. So that's all for right now. Until next time, Fearless Gamers, take care.